The sun's shining. The sun is actually shining at my house. It's wonderful. It's not super bright. There's still a few clouds, but the sun is actually out. Now the ground is still soupy wet. When you walk, the mud's trying to suck your shoes off, but the sun is wonderful to see, and it's warmed up. It's probably 65 degrees, something like that. So it's really nice outside today. So I've headed out to the yard, out to the gardens and the greenhouse to do a couple of things. One thing is, after this really cold 2 weeks that we've had, and we knew winter wasn't gone, but it's still unusual for us to be, you know, all the way into almost March is almost over, and to have really bitter cold. So we had kind of 3 or 4 days of really bitter cold 20-degree weather that didn't warm up much during the day, and then some rain. Of course, we got to have rain on each bookend of all the weather. And then again, we had the same. And in between then, it didn't really warm up much, but then we had another cold blast, and it was again down in the low 20s, and didn't warm up much during the day. So it's been super cold, and our greenhouse heater died on us. It wasn't the heater, it's an electrical issue, but Matt hadn't got it fixed yet. So when that happened, because of that cold weather, we took all the seedlings inside, so they're all inside. But now that it's warmed up, I'm really anxious to get them back into the greenhouse where they can have the sunlight, but also so they'll be out of my way. Now, in preparation of that, we knew that we were going to, as soon as this weather got warm, I was going to be wanting to move all the seedlings back out here. Matt and I, one evening this week after work, when he got off work, we actually scrubbed the greenhouse, the outside of it. So Matt built this greenhouse. I don't remember if it was like 2011, something like that. I will link to the blog post below, to a blog post that tells how to do it, how he did it, in case you're interested. Now, this is only the 3rd piece of plastic that we've had on it since then. The very first plastic that we put on it, we did not do our research very well. And what happened, the seedlings that we started that year were wonderful. We were so happy we had a greenhouse, but just very quickly the plastic just totally deteriorated to the point it was just hanging in strips. I mean, it was just like, you know, like a tornado had went through it or something. It was just terrible. So we removed it, of course, and realized we didn't purchase the right plastic. So after some research, and we got the right plastic, that lasted all the way till, I think it's been since I've been doing YouTube. It wasn't last year, but I think the winter before we redid the plastic, put new plastic on it. And it was amazing to realize how dingy and kind of dark that other had gotten compared to the new. But what's happened in the last winter and last summer, and I guess that last winter since we put on the new, is we've had so much wet weather. We've just had unbelievable amounts of wet weather. So the actual plastic of the greenhouse has kind of started to grow like a little moss kind of on it. Not really, it's weird. It's like in between, more like scum than moss. But it was I think all the rain, and then we have, you know, so many pine trees around us. Pine pollen is really bad here. I think the pine pollen had kind of attached itself to the scum, and you didn't really realize how dingy the plastic had got. So once we began washing it off, we used just a little bit of Dawn dish detergent and vinegar. And Matt got, you know, we've got one of those things that you can wash the car with, kind of on an extension pole. He got that, and I just got a rag, and we just scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed. And most all of it come off. And once it did, then you're like, wow, I can't believe it. Was almost like the greenhouse had a shade cloth on it, which would have kept the, you know, the light from penetrating. So now, like where I'm standing, I can look and see directly through the greenhouse out to the other side. So that really helped a lot. And people that live in different climates than we do, and maybe not on the north side of the mountain where you get a ton of rain and then it doesn't actually get to dry out very often, at least for the last few years, it probably is different, and maybe that's not ever been an issue for them. But I know once I get those seedlings in, having that nice clear plastic back will really help. This is the part of the yard where we kind of had the work done, so of course it's still real soupy and messy, but even just walking, I'm sure if I be quiet, you can hear. So right here's a good example of how wet we are, where we need to dry out. Can't take a step without the mud trying to grab your shoes. we've had so much cold weather this winter that I've really been curious about my strawberries. They did so good for me the last 2 years, but you can see how pitiful they looked. But I just noticed today there is some growth there, and there's some right there. Even some little new leaves right there. So they're certainly not all dead, even though some of them do look kind of past the point. I don't know, maybe that's some new, I think that's some new growth too. So maybe they're doing better than I had thought. The greenhouse floor is a muddy mess too, but I got everything brought back in. You can see how things are doing. Let's see what that is. That's one of Corey's. Retro, that's one of her flowers she planted. That's a bachelor buttons. And then some of the tomatoes. I think that's one of Corey's blueberry. I can't even pronounce that one. I don't see anything. Well, yeah, I do right there coming up. So Corey's are coming up. There's a little seedling there in that one. Looks like he's kind of, maybe that'll help some. Put it back. And then you can see the tomatoes too, that they're beginning to come up. So very exciting time as we think about all the goodness of the tomatoes, what they'll do for us. It won't be long and we'll be picking them off the vine as fast as time flies. And then I brought the cabbage back out here too. I brought everything except the peppers. I'll keep them inside since I have a good place for them. I hope that I would love to plant the cabbage out in the garden this weekend, but it's going to rain. But they're ready to be put in the ground. So hopefully, I don't know, maybe I can figure out how to do that tomorrow. It's always nice this time of the year when you do have seedlings where you get, once you get, you know, you get kind of tired of taking care of them. And then it's kind of like they're little children, and then you're ready to put them out into the world on their own. And that's always a happy day. You can see what's happened to this one. Katie accidentally knocked it over, and then she turned it upside down, put it back in there, but then thought, well, now the seed's upside down. Anyway, that's how that one ended up. But you can see the tomato down there has sprouted. Now that I've got that chore over with, feels good to have all the seedlings back out here. Matt's going to buy the outlet or the electrical, whatever it is he needs, he's going to buy to fix the electricity. We don't need it. I think from this point on, maybe we'll be okay without the heater, but we need it for the fan. You can see the fan back there in the back. So once it gets really hot in there, you need something to pull out that heat, or your plants would it'd just be way too hot for them. Another thing the fan does when you're growing seedlings, you want them to be, if you're a gardener, you've probably seen videos or read books about people hardening off their seedlings. When they've been kind of sheltered, then you need to expose them to the wind, like right now, even though it's maybe you can't see the trees blowing or anything, I can feel there's a breeze. So they need to get tough. You need to toughen your plants up. Of course, you don't have to worry about that if you direct sow out in the garden, but when you're dealing with seedlings, you do have to worry about that. So having a fan in a greenhouse also helps with that. It takes out some of the hot air, but it also gives airflow so that the plants become sturdier. My strawberries did so good last year that I just continuously took the little babies that grow off of them, little shoots, and started them in different places, in my other green stalk and then in this grow bag here. And you can see this one's definitely got some growth, which is great. The one beside it though, there's only that one green shoot. The rest of it looks like it's all died. So before I go back in, about getting close to supper time, I'm going to have to start supper. I'm going to walk around and kind of check on some other things. I want to see how my spring vegetables that I've got planted down in the front, how they're doing. But right here's a good view. I don't know if you can tell because you probably wasn't paying attention to how dingy the greenhouse was, but you can really see right here. You can kind of see through the plastic and see inside. So I'm so glad Matt and I got that done. I know that'll really help. So this is an elderberry that I planted last year. That one's kind of broke, but I was worried about it. You can see it's come up here, kind of come up from the roots, but I was really worried about it because some of those cold mornings I did not try to cover it up. It just kind of drooped over, but it looks like it's kind of sprung back pretty good. And the reason I didn't cover it up is because I knew that it would, even if it killed it back, it would come back up. So I'm excited about this. Maybe this year I'll actually have elderberries. We planted them last year and didn't have any the first year, but maybe this will be the year. This is one that I bought, but Pastor Lon and Robbie Lynn also give me some elderberries, so I'm gonna have to check on them and see if they made it through the winter. This is a little tiny apple tree. I mean, it's not even waist high, and I probably would have never planted it, but Granny gave it to me. She started it from seeds from some apples that she got from Farmer Tim down the road, and she just insisted that I take it home. So I've had it about 2 years, and this is about as tall as it's got. I don't even know if it would be true to the apple. I don't know, but it's one of those things Granny just kept insisting, so I was like, okay, I'll take it home and plant it. This is our most established apple tree. I can see that it's got leaves all over it. It's just now beginning to bud out, so we'll have to see if it does anything for us this year. Last year it didn't have one apple, but it had already bloomed by the time Corey and Austin got married and we had that really cold freeze. So this year it's much, much later blooming, which is a good thing with all the cold weather we've had. I've still got daffodils blooming. Those first ones are long gone, but I've got some different varieties. Look how pretty this one is. I love the orange against the yellow. So pretty. So we've not made any more progress on our raised beds on the bank. Matt, this is the only one that we've almost got filled. We just need to put a layer of dirt on top. We did buy one though, another one to go right here where I'm standing. Matt just needs to put it together. And then that one on the other side of the blackberry briars, I was able to get some grow bags, some of the big 30-gallon grow bags, so that I will there's kind of a little bit of room on each end, but not really enough for another whole bed. So I did get those so we can put them on either end of that one. And I'll be sure to add the link to the raised beds and to the grow bags in the description below. I was walking up to the front to see about the spring vegetables and noticed this little bloom. There's another one right there. This is a little primrose I've had for ages. I mean, years and years and years. I've got one at this end and one at the other end, and they're two different colors. This one's darker, so it'll only be a few days and those will be blooming. They're a really beautiful flower, and they come in the early spring like this, and then by the time warm weather gets here, true warm weather, they're long gone. So I come up to the front to see if I could find the other primrose, and I've really not been able to locate it, so I hope something hadn't happened to it. I have a lot of spring type little flowers. A lot of them have already bloomed, snowdrops and crocuses, but here's a pretty one that's still blooming. So this is the bed where I have the my spring stuff growing, where I've got it planted here in the front. And then back there in the back is where my daffodils, you can see a lot of them are kind of spent and they've already died back, but there's a few more. And those that are blooming now are, Granny called them narcissus. I don't know if that's truly what they are, but they smell so fragrant. They're just really lovely. And as they're just beginning to bloom, I'll have lots of them. That's what most of those that are left there are. So that's really nice. And I got them from Granny a start years and years ago when I first moved into my house. So my first little tiny row there is carrots, but I don't see nary a carrot. So hopefully they'll still come up, but I don't see not even one. So the second row is my green onions. You can see them coming up down through there. This is my first planting. I will do succession plantings of them because we really love to eat them all through the summer. The third row is radishes, so you can see them growing, and you can see that I probably need to do some thinning. Thinning is the hard part. It's hard to thin, although I could plant some of them right there that if I could gently pull them up, but they're coming up really good. This row is more carrots, and I do see some of them coming up. You can see right there. And right there's a couple, and then right there's a couple. So this row is coming up. Maybe that first one will come along like this one. So these last two rows are beets, and I don't see nary a beet. So they've not come up yet, but hopefully they will. Beets take forever. So in this little bed is some Jericho lettuce you can see growing up. Just behind it, I have a little bit of Paris Island lettuce coming up. And then in this little bed, I have some spinach. You can see it. I know I'll definitely start some more lettuce, like for succession plantings. I don't know about the spinach, but I might, either spinach or kale. One thing that did get damaged was this. You can see how it's a daylily, how it's just flipped over. The cold really hurt it. Hopefully it'll come back out. I think that part's dead. But this is one, if you watched, I'll link to the video last year that we went on a hike up the creek and I brought back a flower. Well, this is the flower I brought back. So looks like I might not get to see it actually bloom this year either. But maybe, I'm hopeful, maybe it'll come back out. Same thing happened for these are little miniature hostas, and you can kind of see how damaged they are. And that's from the cold too. They were just beginning to come out though. Now that part right there still really looks good. So hopefully they'll be fine. And even if this part doesn't do good, this will die back and then come right back out. I'm not sure if this is the same daffodil as in the back or not. I think it's lighter. I think it's more ruffledy too, but this is another one that's blooming right now. I have several of them right here in this flower bed. A really pretty flower. This is a peony Granny shared with me back when I first moved in here, so it's a really old one. It's a beautiful pink bloom. I was afraid that really cold weather, you know, probably bit it back, but maybe it's going to be okay. Maybe I'll have blooms. Here's a plant I'm excited about. This is a lupine. I've never grown lupines before, so I'm not sure what it'll do, but maybe it'll be beautiful. This is one of the beds that Katie and I threw the poppies out in. So right there's a poppy. So at least there's a few growing here that our trick of throwing them out in the winter worked again. Here's some other little flowers that we threw out. I don't know what they are. We'll have to wait and see. I was talking about how wonderful the narcissus smelled. They've perfumed the whole yard. The whole front yard smells like that if you go outside. It just smells so good. In a recent video, I told you about how over the years some of my flowers had ended up off the bank. So I seen a great big clump of them off down the bank. So I braved the steep incline and climbed down there and picked all of these. I'm going to take them inside. My whole house will smell like this now. They're so lovely. Such a pretty little bloom, you can see. And nice that you have those first flush of daffodils and then they just kind of keep blooming a little bit until true warm weather arrives. I think these are my favorite though as far as the scent goes. One thing I've not shared, I hadn't shared with you, is this wonderful set of steps I'm sitting on. So for many years, we had some steps that Matt had just kind of used creek rocks and put into the bank here, and you could go up and down, because what happens is you're outside working and you need something from the basement, and if you're right there, you either have to just climb straight down this bank, or you have to walk all the way around, or go through the house, which of course you don't want to do if you've got, you know, if you've been out in the mud mucking about, especially as muddy as it is right now. And anyway, those steps worked okay for, they wasn't the best, but they worked for a long, long time. But recently, we had the same nice folks that stained our house. We got them to build these steps for us. So they're really nice, really sturdy. They'll be here from now on. They've got rock on the step part of them, and then the nice wood. After, when they first finished them, Matt said, well, those are really nice. They're nicer than our house. So we were both kind of shocked by how great they turned out, but we really love them. But now I've got to figure out on this part, you can kind of see that's the drain pipe just from the gutter up there. We need to add some more mulch here. It's kind of where they had to disturb it to build the steps. But I've got to decide if I want to plant something there. Of course, I want to plant something everywhere, but then I remind myself that if you plant, you got to be careful what you plant, because I don't want it to grow up on the house. I don't want to, you know, something like a vine that would grow up, but I also don't want it to, you know, kind of be real snaky right there either, because you'll be coming up and down, and it's really close to the house and really close to the basement. So I don't know if you've got any thoughts about that. Please, I'm open to suggestions. So I hope you enjoyed kind of walking around with me today. This is not really a garden tour because I don't have everything growing, but I guess in one way it is, kind of to check on the seedlings and see the little spring vegetables that are just starting out. Exciting that I seen some carrots. Exciting that my spinach is about that high. I hadn't noticed it before. It and the lettuce will grow quickly now that they're up that high. Will really grow quickly, especially if that bitter cold weather doesn't come back. It's been really wonderful, though, just to be outside. I've been stuck inside with the cold, and we did brave the cold. We worked at Austin and Corey's. It was bitter cold that day, so we did get out in it some. Me and Matt were out in it kind of the week before that, but it's nice to actually feel like, okay, spring was here, it went away, now it's back again. Someone told me the other day, said, you know, we had March in February, so now we're having February. I was like, yeah, I think you're right. So I hope you'll continue to drop back by, though, and help me as I celebrate Appalachia, which is a whole lot about making a garden, things to eat, off the good land, and also just appreciating the beauty that surrounds us outside. I know everyone can't have a garden, they can't have a you know, the land that we have. We don't have that much. We only have an acre. A lot of people ask me in the videos, we only have an acre of land, is all Pap gave us, but we are surrounded by family land, so that's really nice, really kind of a protection around us. But I know everyone can't have that. But, you know, even if you just get a little sprig of something and bring it indoors, it really does lift your spirits. I promise if you do that, it really will. And if you can't garden, if you just have a grow bag, but even if you just have a little house plant and you check on it, and I think it really does something for our spirits. It really does something inside for us and puts us in a better place. So please do drop back by. This is the beginning of the summer, beginning of that summer garden. I'm inching closer to it every day.